Welcome to the Millennial Reset podcast. Stories of everyday millennials that are redefining success and happiness. Those that have decided to face those subconscious limiting beliefs head on and take the path less traveled to hit reset. Stories that inspire you to take the leap to pursue the passions, dreams, and goals of your inner child and not the expectations of society. If you're new here, welcome. You found your people. I'm your host, Peter Goose, burnt out millennial turned human design and mindset coach, and it's now my mission to create a space to have the conversations out loud around millennial burnout and mindset and inspire and empower my fellow millennial besties to decondition from the programs that keep so many of us stuck and rediscover your most authentic identity, or in other words, the Millennial Reset. And I'm so glad you're here. Hey y'all, welcome to another episode of the Millennial Reset. Let's get one thing straight. Mental health matters, especially millennial mental health, because here's the thing. As millennials, we've been conditioned. We've been conditioned by society from a young age to base our level of worth on our level of productivity. And we get talked into this lifestyle where mental health takes a back seat to trying to prove our enoughness. And then I think what's happening right now, though, is that so many of us are getting into our 30s and 40s where we realize that the very thing that is supposed to bring us all this success and happiness is also completely draining our creativity and hijacking our entire identity. And then it's like, once you give yourself a break, then you're hit with the realization that, holy shit, time is limited. And if I don't like the trajectory I'm on, then I guess I still have time to change it. So super excited for my guest today, Clare. After years of a successful career in pharmaceutical event planning, she not only hit the brick wall, but made the bold and empowering decision to put her mental health first. Clare, welcome. Thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, Peter, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you giving me the time and a chance to spread, some of the things that I've learned and hopefully help people along their journey and not have to suffer as much as I did, or some of us have. So I want to make sure that we can get this information out to people.
Exactly. If we can take that recovery period from 4 years to 6 months,
right.
That would be fantastic. So Clare, like I mentioned, you started off your career in pharmaceutical event planning, and then you just recently left the 9-to-5 corporate world. And I want you to actually start off by just telling the audience a little bit about what you're doing now, because I think this is so fucking awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. So I decided, I was thinking about after my burnout and all of the symptoms that go along with that, what I could do with my life and what my life's purpose was here, and how could I take the the burnout that I went through and share what I've learned, and how our bodies are so affected by the world that we live in, more so than it ever has been, with the technology that is around us, and all of the EMFs that are flying all over, and just the daily grind, and how we never get a break. And if all of our energy is put into the corporate life and the success of that corporate business, and we stare at technology all day, and then we go home and we stare at technology all day, at what point does our body and our brain realize that it's bedtime, it's daytime, it's time to relax? Because if our bodies don't know whether it's a tiger or whether it's our boss coming down on us for a deadline, all it knows is that it's stressed. And when you live in that state of stress for so long, it stores in our body with, and it manifests itself. People overthink, and the thoughts ruminate, and then it stays in your body, and your hips are sore, and your knees are sore, and your back is sore, and you can't stand for long. And then you work all day at someone else's job, and then you can't be a good friend, a good girlfriend, a good family member, a good aunt, because you're too tired from doing somebody else's bidding.
Yeah.
And so I took a long, hard look of so after going to doctors and saying why do I have this pain, and what is this, and run this test, and have sleep studies done because I can't get a good night's sleep, and being diagnosed with sleep apnea or depression or anything like this, okay, fine, what is the root cause of it all? I have a stressful job, that's par for the course. And for so long I was like, I have a stressful job, that's what I'm supposed to be, I'm supposed to be stressed out. And then but I did not have, a great appreciation of what it physically was doing to me and mentally,
Yeah.
and what I thought. And, when I started my career, and I said, well, how come I could, accomplish all of this in a 12-hour period? And now I'm like staring at a computer like, what do I do now? Because my brain just said no more. My body said physically no more.
Yeah.
And so what was the cause of it? So I did a really big deep dive into the root of what it is. Why do we have insomnia? Why do we have excessive stress? Why are we getting put on medication when there might be a different way about it?
Mm-hmm.
And so with all that knowledge, what I wanted to do, I reflected on how can I share this information. And so, one of the things that people often tell me is that, oh, you have a great voice, you have good stage presence. And so I have this information, I have the stage presence. So let me take this and share my knowledge. And so I have embarked on a journey now, after leaving my job, my career, to spread this knowledge to everyone else who might need it, who might be wondering why they can't sleep, or why they're tired all day, or why they are working towards the weekend. When the weekend comes, they
Yeah.
sleep all weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And there are real physical and chemical reactions that are happening inside of our body that are causing these manifestations.
Mm-hmm.
So if I could help people a little bit with the struggle that I had, and have them, like you said, have, a 6 month recovery window instead of 4 years, that's what I would love to do. Or better yet, stop it before it even happens, or gets to the
Yeah.
point, like identifying it as not just stress, that you are on your way to burnout, that there's a difference between stress and there's a difference between burnout.
Yes.
And even the term burnout is a new term for people. And when I'm trying to explain to people who are like, oh, what are you going to do with yourself? I'm like, oh, I'm going to be a public speaker, and I'm going to tell people about burnout. And so many people are like, what do you mean burnout? Oh, stress. No. This is beyond
Yeah.
stress, ladies and gentlemen. This is barely controllable. So,
Mm-hmm.
even people who they themselves need to have that aha moment where it's like, oh, I am beyond stress. Like, this is not something where I can go meditate for 30 minutes and feel better. This is, my hips hurt, and we're to the point where, like,
Yeah.
I bought a new mattress because I thought that would be the solution,
Yeah.
and it was not. So
I went out and bought a zero gravity mattress during COVID. I was like, this'll help. And now I just go to bed every night at 7:30 and get my little zero gravity bed. But, hey,
right.
something's got to give. But yeah, I mean, number one, let's talk about, I mean, you and I could have conversations about this all day for the next, 3 weeks. But one of the things that's so fascinating to me that you mentioned as well is that, every time that we go to the doctor about it, they tell us, well, it's stress, it's anxiety, it's depression. And it's like, okay, you're telling me that all three of those things are happening at the same time, but like, why? And what do I do about it? How do I fix it?
Right.
And I was talking to a guest the other week. She lives in Sweden, and we were talking about this whole idea that, like, in Sweden, they recognize burnout as like a medical condition, versus here, the WHO has classified burnout as a thing, but they refuse to call it a medical condition because it's restricted to only work. And it's so it's like, yeah, we can go to the doctors, but again, they're not going to be able to tell us that we have burnout because it's not a medical condition. All they're going to tell us is that you're overstressed, you have anxiety, and then we then go and get on medication, which by all means can be of great assistance and help to people, but medication is designed to treat the symptoms, not the cause, right? And so I think that's why your message is so incredibly powerful, and so many people need to hear this. Is it's one thing to talk about burnout prevention, but I hate to break it to you, big corporations of America, that train has sailed, that ship has
Mhm.
sailed, right? Now we need to talk about burnout recovery.
Right.
So yeah, we could talk all day, every day.
Yeah, when I had
Um,
my exit interview, I think it was very enlightening to the HR team, just about, how
yeah,
and it's not just me, it's a lot of people who are experiencing this. And, like you said, the healthcare industry has been designed to treat the symptoms, not the cause.
mm-hmm,
And so, a lot of it is introspection and thinking, really going inside of yourself to say, well, what is it that's triggering? And it's a shame that it is, boiled down to people in working in the corporate world, because it affects everybody,
Yeah.
it's not just corporate workers, it's the mother that's stressed out, it's the McDonald's worker who wants to make their, have their monthly bills paid too.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody is stressed out, and we're just constantly tick 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 on that
Yeah.
technology. We use it for work, we use it for play, we use it to desensitize ourselves, and it just is
Yeah.
leading to these internal chemical changes into our body that we're not even realizing the way that they're manifesting out.
Mm-hmm. And it's like, I say this kind of jokingly sometimes, but I think there's a certain degree of, kind of sad truth to it is that, like, especially as millennials, we've become masters of dissociation because there's so much going on. There's so many things that are happening out here in our external world that get us triggered
Mhm.
and, trigger that stress response. And so what do we do? Because it's too much to handle. We say, shove that shit down. I
Mhm.
can't deal with it right now. But you mentioned this earlier, and I think it's something that if people just realize this more about how stress manifests in the body as that emotional tension that builds up. And every time that we dissociate, we're just shoving more emotion down into our body. And emotion literally means energy in motion. And
Mhm.
so the more energy that we shove down, the more energy it takes to keep all of that shit shoved down until the point where, oh my God, my cup is completely full, and even the smallest thing is going to trigger me over the edge. And then from there, at that point in time, it's like, okay, action has to happen.
And
Um,
by that time, people have dissociated for so long that
yeah.
they've done essentially a mask to everyone else, and
Yes.
everyone else believes that everything is great. And in my role, I hosted a lot of conference calls, and I was the leader of the call, and so I had to be the game show host. So
Mm-hmm.
regardless of whether I was depressed, sad, in pain, anything, I had to be right there. Good morning. We're
Yeah.
just going to wait a couple more minutes for everyone to join. And
Mm-hmm.
every day, we're just going to wait a couple more minutes for everyone to join. And I just
Yeah.
could not, and so then it's hard then to eventually come out and say, I'm not doing well. I'm burnt out, because they say,
Yes.
what do you mean you're burnt out? You smile, you're happy, you talk to us, you come to work every day. Well, of course, you have no idea what's happening inside of me.
Yeah. And how much energy it requires to keep the mask on, right?
Right.
Because it's all a facade. It's all this, journey of the ego to try again to prove our enoughness and make others see our worth. And then, yeah, there comes that point in time where you're like, this isn't quite worth the amount of energy that it takes to, keep this mask and this facade put on for others.
And I
Um,
think that that's why it's so important to educate people on this concept, and have them understand the full picture of it.
yeah.
I did disclose and try to explain to my management what was happening and what I was feeling, and how the mask was hard to keep on. And I cannot make this up. I walked out of that meeting, and we've got onto a conference call where I guess I didn't have my mask on, and I got the IM that said smile. So there, I had to put that smile back on, even though
Oh
I had just
God.
come out of a meeting where I poured my heart and soul out to saying, like, this is what is happening. And it was like, whew, put your smile
Wow.
back on. And so that was one of the many blocks that came down to the final decision, where I woke up on a Monday morning and I said, this is it.
Yeah.
I'm going in and doing it.
Yeah. Whew, man. So let's go backwards a little bit. Let's talk about kind of that slow burn that led up to that moment. You were in pharmaceutical event planning. You were working, the not just 40 hours a week. You were
Mhm.
talking, 60 to 80 hours a week, burning yourself out. So talk us through like what was a typical day for you when you were kind of in that, quote unquote pre-reset lifestyle, and then lead us up to the point in time going to the doctors and then finally making that decision, and what led to that decision to say, can't keep doing this for the next 30 years of my life.
Yeah, absolutely. So, day to day, it's event planning. And, as mentioned, it was the pharmaceutical industry. So there's big, funding that goes into all of these events, and they're a big deal. And the success of those events, are important for the success of the company. And I understand all of that. And
Mm-hmm.
so you have, the CEO who's in your meeting, who wants to know how many people are registered, how many people are coming, and then you have your other extended teams that you've got to get on a call and say, here's the status of everything. And we all have to have the status call to talk about the status of people,
Yeah.
the meeting about the meeting, and the meeting to
And the
prep about the
pre-meeting.
meeting, the pre-meeting to
And the
prep about the meeting.
post-meeting.
And then the side meeting to talk about the post meeting because you couldn't share what you really meant. And so, so you have that. And then on top of that, there was an extensive amount of travel, which I am very blessed. It brought me across the globe. I have seen wonderful places. I have met wonderful people, and I don't, but it was a lot. There was a year where I flew 150,000 miles in a single year.
Wow.
And, and that's how my name, Ben C, became to be, from the upgrade list, because I flew so much that I, had the opportunity to be on that list. So my nickname, Ben C, so you have the, you have that where you work in an office all day long, then you've got to go home and pack and get on a flight at 6 a.m. And, I used to joke that I was allergic to mornings. Well, because I'd wake up in the morning and feel terrible, but my occupation required me having a 5 or 6 a.m. call time when I was on site at meetings. And then you're on your feet all day. And I would make jokes, like people would say, oh, Claire, have you eaten anything today? And I'm like, I'm running on adrenaline and caffeine.
Yeah.
And at the time, it was normal. You wake up, you drink a cup of coffee, you go.
Yeah.
Maybe 10 o'clock at night, you get to eat, and then you eat all your calories in one fell swoop. And then, you've got to wake up and do it all over again. And, you do that, and then you're tired from your trip, but you can't show that you're tired. You can't show that you're in pain, that your back hurts from sitting on that flight. You got to put on your mask and go back to work. And, you've got an entire network of people who are relying on what you do every day. And, as it just started going on, and I, like, as I said, I said, oh, I have a stressful job. Stress is normal. That's what,
Yeah.
But then the physical, manifestation started happening. I would go to the doctor, I'd say, there's something just not right here. Oh, well, you're depressed. Here is a medication for that. I'm like, okay, well, I took that, but it's still, I'm still feeling this anxiety. Oh, you're having anxiety. Here, take this.
Yeah.
Well, I'm still not sleeping well. Oh, you need to go see a sleep specialist. So I go see a sleep specialist. Oh, you have sleep apnea. Here's a CPAP machine. Okay, now my airways are clear, but I'm still not sleeping. And what was really frustrating about that part is that I had said to that doctor that my brain just won't stop. I never talked necessarily about how people, anecdotally say that I stop breathing in my sleep or anything like that. I told that doctor over and over again that my brain gets me going.
Yeah.
Even when I had the sleep study done, the technician who did it was like, oh, you don't stop moving, because my feet, I don't know if you've ever had a sleep study done, but they rig you up with all of this equipment. I mean, every part of your body has some kind of sensor on it. And it's like, so I'm telling you that my brain won't stop going. The technician is noticing that my body doesn't stop when I'm sleeping. When am I ever getting rest? But the answer was, because that's what the manual probably told this doctor, was put her on a CPAP machine.
Oh my gosh.
And so you think, oh, this is the solution. I'm on a CPAP now. So then you sleep on a CPAP and you're like, well, wait a minute, I'm still exhausted.
Yeah.
And so then you go and you have all these partial diagnoses, because none of our healthcare and doctors work together. So this one diagnoses you for this and this one diagnoses you for this, but how do both of those play into each other?
Yeah.
So so then I started really delving into everything, and I realized that there was a touch of ADHD. So after a year of having therapy, I finally was able to have them say, oh, yes, you have ADHD. So then I was like, okay, this makes a lot more sense. So then let me look into how to, thrive and maximize my life, and tips and tricks and things like that. So I would do things like, block my calendar to focus on a certain task. Well, blocking my calendar made me unavailable to my clients. And so therefore I was told, unblock your calendar. But I'm trying to do what I have to do, and you're still telling me that I can't do that. And so, after you go down this path, and even when you try and come up with your own solutions, people still don't get it. And, without that support, and you start looking at yourself, because you only have yourself to support, and you say, well, what is it? And so you start thinking about, okay, well, maybe it's the ADHD, and then you discover, oh, maybe I'm a little autistic. And then you start realizing that your communication is different than everyone else. And, how can you change yourself to be like, to communicate better so that they understand you, so that the words that are coming out of your mouth are actually sinking in and they can help you, and they still
Yeah.
don't get it. And so you're still left alone.
Mm-hmm.
So all these changes. And then I finally just said, I'm going to work, I have many more years on this earth. And if I'm going to go to a gray, cold building all day and then be too exhausted to go see my family, my friends, to do, regular self-care things, what is the point of any of this?
Amen. Yes. And you bring up such a good point, and I'm not saying that it's everybody out there. There are, I think, corporations that are doing a really great job of taking mental health in the workplace more seriously. But I think that there are, unfortunately, the companies out there that they dictate what mental health in the workplace means to them versus actually listening to the employee to say, actually, no, I need to block my calendar because when I do that, I'm enhancing my mental health. And when I enhance my mental health, I'm able to be a better worker for you, for your goals and your profits. But no, they don't listen to that. They say, here's our mental health policy from HR. Here's how we're willing to support you. Go, call this toll-free helpline and maybe they can help you out. And it's like,
Exactly.
if we're going to ever turn this train around, I think the conversation is going to have to sound a little bit different, right?
And Peter, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, the employee assistance program, that was the solution that was provided to me. Please
Yeah.
call this 1-800 number.
Yeah.
You nail on the head.
Uh, and then, yeah, then of course, because burnout's not a medical condition, then of course, oftentimes that's just going to lead you down this, creating the truth for yourself that it's just stress, anxiety, and depression. And then of course, the cycle just, the cycle just continues on. Um, but yeah, I love what you talk about too, Claire, of like that moment, that the unblocking your calendar moment was kind of like the final straw for you, where you're like, okay, time to make a change.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, the thing that I love about your story too is like when you think about like ownership, you are the epitome of taking ownership of your situation and your ownership of your mental health because yes, of course, you went and saw the professionals, the doctors, the therapists, but you also did the work of being able to like discover for yourself. Like I know you talked earlier about like looking into like adrenal fatigue syndrome and trying to figure out like what does that actually mean in the context of burnout. So talk to us a little bit about that. Like after you finally were able to leave the job, give yourself that little bit of break. I know it hasn't been too long for you yet, but even in the short period of time that you've had so far, like what is it that you've learned not only about yourself, but also just about like the physiology of burnout that, all makes sense to you now?
Yeah, absolutely. So, once you remove that go, go, go mentality, your mornings become more pleasurable. You have time to nourish yourself, to cook yourself a good breakfast, to not start your day with a cup of coffee and keep it moving, because you can stand in your kitchen and cook your eggs and you don't have to, meal prep so that you can grab your sandwich on the go and, and all that stuff. And you can have that quiet moment where you can go outside and look at the sunshine and say, brain, it's morning time. Now is the time that
Yeah.
I need cortisol. And so really, I've done a lot of, research into the physiology changes. So, our brain recognizes sunlight and says it's go time. And so,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that I think in the past, I never really looked up at the sun. I never spent time. You wake up in the morning, you get ready, you get in your car, you go to the office. When did we have that outside time? So really taking that time to take in that sunlight and say, brain, it is morning time. Then on the flip side of that, you have the nighttime where all day long we've been on a computer and the blue light has been glaring at us. Then we go home and we look at our phone and the blue light is glaring at us. And then we watch television and the blue light is in us. And our brain still thinks it's daytime. And so the
Mm-hmm.
brain is still pumping cortisol because that's what it thinks it's supposed to do. And then we never feel tired because it never kicks in that melatonin. So then what do? We medicate ourselves. We take melatonin pills. We sleep crappy. We wake up the next morning. We're tired, rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
And then, and so on the flip side of that, in the morning, you've got the sunshine, but on the nighttime, then you've got to tell your brain, okay, it's nighttime now. So
Mm-hmm.
by taking changes of setting my computer to change the display settings after sunset, to purposely saying, if the sun goes down, I'm putting my blue blocker glasses on.
Yeah.
And that change alone, to tell my brain morning, night, like that, I remember that BBC, nighttime, daytime, nighttime,
Yeah.
daytime. So that same concept where it says morning, cortisol, now, instead of that 10 o'clock at night where your stress would be going and you'd say, it's nighttime. Why am I all jazzed up?
Yeah.
Because your brain still thinks it's daytime.
Mm.
And so really taking the time to regulate, like you said, the adrenal fatigue, because it's all about your internal systems and regulating
Yeah.
those. So getting that cycle to say morning, night, I sleep better than I have ever in my entire life. When I first really started being really disciplined with this, I would wake up and think I must have slept for 10 hours. For
Uh-huh.
3 hours, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And my brain then didn't click on at 3 a.m. and not be able to start. It
Yeah.
still knew it was nighttime, and I was able to fall back asleep and
Yep.
still wake up at a regular time and then say, wait a minute, I slept really good without sleeping pills, without melatonin, without my CPAP machine. I was told
Uh-huh.
was the problem, because no one ever thought to say, well, Claire, what's up with the cortisol levels in your body? Well, what's up with
Yeah.
your levels look fine. You're within normal range.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, what's normal? Okay.
Exactly. What's normal these days?
And while you might be within, let's say, a normal range for cortisol, it doesn't mean that the cortisol is spiking at the right time of day.
Yeah.
And so you go to see a doctor and they just say, everything looks okay. And you go home, and you're like, everything is just not okay.
Yeah.
So, that alone has just made a world of difference, that I've been able to take the time to take the time to actually take care of myself and my needs, and not
Mm-hmm.
just, oh my God, I have to get to the office. Oh my God, I have a meeting. I have to get on my conference call and be the game show host. And
Yeah.
then, when you wake up in the morning, you think immediately, up to-do list. I have this
Mm-hmm.
meeting. I have to go to this person. I have to do this. I have this
Yeah.
appointment. I have it. Now I say, what day is it? Is it Friday? What's
Yeah.
my Saturday?
I
Now,
was
that's not to
thinking,
say I don't have work, but, go
yeah,
ahead.
but less work for sure. But yeah, I was talking about this in with somebody I'm doing a program with in a couple of weeks here, and it's this whole idea that like the brain science of like you're talking about the
Mhm.
hormones, and like we wake up in the morning, and when you wake up in the morning, your cortisol levels are the highest that they're going to be all day because it's just simply your brain's way of being able to wake you up, right? It's being able to give you that little kickstarter of the hormones so that you can get your ass out of bed and do the things that you need to do. But then what we do as humans, and I think especially as millennials, is the morning or the instant that that cortisol then gets released in the mornings, then the story that we create for ourselves in our mind before we even get out of bed is like, what are the 10,000 things that I need to get done on my to-do list today that are going to help me to survive, right? Like, what is it that I need to do to survive today? And I know, like, or after I quit my job, it was like that shift in the morning of like, oh, wait a second, I don't actually have anything that I have to do today. And then, yeah, I would go outside with my coffee and like enjoy the sunlight for a few minutes. And it's like when you begin to reprogram your brain's thoughts around what it means to have cortisol released in your body first thing in the morning, because it's just your brain and your body naturally doing what it does in the morning. And instead of having to assign thoughts to that and stress yourself out, to just say, oh, thank you, body, for allowing me to wake up. And now I'm going to go ahead and choose my own thoughts. But
And
that's,
then
yeah.
we're addicted to adrenaline. The
Oh, yeah.
adrenaline spikes, and then our bodies get used to it. And so on some subconscious level, I think then we create the stress for ourselves because
Mm-hmm.
we want that adrenaline hit. We want that hit of dopamine. We're go, 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 because that's all we've ever
Yeah.
known. And so, to take that step back and be able to have be able to break out of that fight or flight.
Mm-hmm.
There's the fight, flight, and fawn. Well, I did all of them, and
Yeah.
and in the end, I died.
Yeah. But you came back.
I'm here. Yes.
Um, and let's talk a little bit more about kind of like the mindset piece, because I think that this is, one of those things that is, again, so specific to millennials too, is this whole conditioning that, You said it best, Claire, that our time is only worthy if it's productive, and that we've gotten ourselves to this place of allowing our job titles to determine our worth based on that next promotion. And that's not an easy one to break, right? Because number one, beliefs are there to keep us safe and alive. And so somehow that belief has served us well. It's gotten to the point that
Right.
we're at right now. And one of the scariest things that you can do in your life is to make a change, because it's easier to, like you said, avoid a risk as opposed to approach a gain. Talk to us a little bit about what it took for you to break down some of those limiting and sabotaging beliefs and mindsets.
Yeah. So I can, remember a world where, my title was everything. You link your LinkedIn profile, you got to get that title up.
Yeah.
Even when people get promoted, they often get a title change and not a financial compensation. So we often think of that title as being even more profit lucrative than having that money
Yep.
increase. And so we live by our titles, and people don't ask us what we do for fun. People ask us, what do you do for work? What's your job?
Yes.
And so
Mm-hmm.
and they want a concise answer. So I remember early on in my days, I had a title, and someone asked me who I was. I introduced myself and I said, "This is, hi, I'm Claire Benyon, the convention sales manager." And I must have said it with such enthusiasm that man, I didn't even have a name badge on, but he said,
Uh-huh.
"Oh, I saw that name badge sparkle from here, Claire." And I'm like, I was taking such pride in this title that I had.
Yeah.
And then, as you go on and you want to have a career, because that's what they told us, we can do anything in the world. So that career has to keep going. And I remember I took another step where I got a different title change. And my sister-in-law said to me, "I don't know what your occupation is, but that title sounds good. So congratulations,"
Uh-huh.
because all she knew was that title meant good things.
Right.
And so, you say to yourself, well, am I my occupation or am I myself?
Mm.
And then you say to yourself, well, okay, I'm putting all of my time and energy into being this occupation. What about the other things about my personality and my
Yeah.
life that are more important or should be more important than your job? And when you say to yourself, like, my family would have dinner on a Friday night, I'm too tired to go. And so I just wouldn't go. And it wasn't because I
Mm-hmm.
had other plans, it was because I simply was exhausted and could not
Yes.
fathom speaking to anybody anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so you do this and you say to yourself, what am I working for? You say, oh, I won't be able to access my 401k until I'm 65 years old. Well, I'm only 40 now. What am I going to do until then? I cannot work in this office building for the
Yeah.
next 30 years. I don't know if you have ever seen the show, the movie from the 90s, Joe versus the Volcano, with Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan.
Oh
He is an
gosh.
office worker in the beginning of the movie, and there's this opening scene where he is just trudging into this office building, and there's smokestacks and everyone has gray clothes on, and they're just trudging along, and he goes into the building and the fluorescent bulbs are blinking above him, and his boss says to him, "What's the matter with you?" And he says, "Oh, these lights are making me splotchy." And he's, "Oh, everyone doesn't feel well. That's life. Get used to it."
Uh-huh.
Is it life? Do we have to get used to it?
Yes. Oh.
And then even in that movie, Joe tried to bring himself a lamp so that the fluorescent bulbs, because he himself, and that boss came and took that lamp away. And
Uh-huh.
so if we're sitting here saying to ourselves, this is what I need to make myself better, but we are still jamming ourselves into this, productivity. You have to do this in order to be worthy of,
Mm-hmm.
of life. And you're like,
Yeah.
no, there is more to life than this. There are different ways that I can make money to have a quality life, that I don't have to spend all of my time and energy doing something for someone else when I am walking away with no energy.
Yeah. And I think, I think part of this was like the pandemic going back to like 2022 is like, I think a lot of us woke up to that realization that like, before we were just going through our daily lives and saying, well, this is just how it has to be. Like, this is
Mhm.
life because it's all we knew, right? And I think like the pandemic really opened up our eyes to be able to reevaluate, not just how we were spending our money, but how we were spending our time more importantly, and coming to that realization to say, like, oh my gosh, maybe there is a different option. But I think what's so hard for me in that whole process, and I'm sure others can probably resonate with this too, and I'm sure Claire, you too, kind of leaving the 9 to 5, is that when your identity when the job title is stripped away, right, and that's no longer what's creating the identity, then you have to then say, well, what else is it that creates my identity? And I think for me, part of that struggle was that so much of my identity had become my job title that after I left that job, it was like, well, what am I now? Like, what creates my identity now? And it was scary because it was like I didn't feel like I had an identity, but the exciting part of it was being able to then create it, being able to rediscover all of those different pieces of my inner child, of like, what are the things that I like doing? Like, what are my passions? What are my hobbies? And, you know, it's scary in the short term, but I'm sure you can probably resonate too, of like, once you begin to do that work of self discovery, all of it just pays off in the end because you begin to discover those things about yourself that we forgot about over all the years because they've been covered up by a need to, survive and
Right.
be productive, right? So,
I'm over
yeah.
here trying to make PowerPoint presentations, splashy and colorful because my creativity and my inner child is screaming for color.
Uh-huh.
And then I'm told, oh, these slides are too busy, make them more simple,
Gosh.
but just 2 bullet points because they can't even, So I'm like, I cannot live my life in Excel cells anymore. I need to flourish. I need to create. I need to have a community. And
Yeah.
I think that the community is also something that we're all lacking. To your point about the pandemic, I think that we had the opportunity to slow down a little bit, and
Mm-hmm.
our bodies had the chance to take that edge off. So, for that period of time where things were really shut down, I was not traveling as much as I was.
Yeah.
And now, and I had that opportunity for my body to say, ooh, this is a little bit better. And now the world is ramping back up again and seemingly forgetting everything that we've learned.
Yes.
And they
So
want
right.
me to go 1,000 miles an hour again. And you know what?
Mm-hmm.
I know what it's like to only go 100 miles an hour. And I don't want to go 1,000 miles an hour. I'm going to go 100 miles an hour, and I'm going to
Yep.
enjoy my life a lot better. And I think it's, as we're getting back into this hustle and bustle and people are going back to the office, people are forgetting
Yeah.
that when this all started, the kids were out on the street riding their bikes together.
Mm-hmm.
Neighbors got to know each other.
Yeah.
Families got to spend more time together because they didn't have to go to the office. And we all in the beginning had a little bit more time. And as terrible as it was, we had that moment of community.
Yeah.
And now it's being squashed back again and get back to the
Mm-hmm.
office because somebody has a commercial lease somewhere. So you must go back to the office because that's the only way that, you could be productive.
Yeah.
And it's just, I think that we learned something and they're trying to have us unlearn it now. And
Yeah.
so I think that part of my decision and wanting to spread this word to everyone else is just that, remember where we came from. We came from hunters and gatherers that lived in communities, and it took a
Mm-hmm.
village. There's a saying, it takes a village. There's a
Yeah.
reason why that saying
We
exists, because
forgot.
we should be working all together. We should know our neighbors' names. We should be able
Mm-hmm.
to have someone knock on our front door and not hide because we don't know who they are.
Yes. Everybody that's listening right now is like, oh my God, I feel called out.
Gotcha.
But yeah, you're so right. And it's like, but I think that's where the shift is starting to happen now though, right? Is like people, and especially I always think Gen Z for this movement is like Gen Z ain't taking any of that bullshit. They're like, there's no just going back to normal. Like, we're not just going back to the way things that used to be. The world is completely different now. And I think that, society as a whole is beginning to kind of pick up on that and saying, hey, listen up, corporate capitalism, for a second. Actually, no, you're not just going to get your way and have us go back to quote unquote normal now. No, things are different and we need to have the conversation first. So,
Yeah, and I
um,
recognize that I'm in a unique situation. I don't have children. I don't have a spouse that I need to worry about. I do
yeah,
have a mortgage and 2 dogs that I have to take care of. But I know that there are so many people that are, for lack of a better word, trapped in their
yeah,
job because they have
mm-hmm,
no other choice. And so I felt that my unique situation, that I could take that first step and I could be that person to take the rest of the global, thoughts of how this all goes and be
yeah,
part of the change, so that when it can trickle down to the people who have dependents and people who are really, depending on their income, you know I'll, people like you and we're going to take that leap
yeah,
and hopefully have some effective change in people's mindsets, so that over the next 2, 3, 5, 10 years that we can make that shift. And where as technology is getting even better with AI, and we probably will see people's jobs shifting,
Yeah.
it's not a matter of AI is taking your job away. Let AI take your job away. What else, what can you do when that job is gone then?
Yeah.
And so it's not, oh, woe is me, my job is going to go away because of technology. It's, whoa, we've got technology to take care of this stuff now. Let's
Yeah.
go to the beach.
Uh-huh.
And so I hope that, I can help to be that voice of reason, to break down those limiting beliefs that, higher ups and corporations still have,
Yeah.
because there's a board at the end of the day who wants to know, where's my revenue? What's my profit?
Yeah.
And if we can't say our people are really happy as a
Uh-huh.
a profit, then we're always going to be stuck in that same cycle.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, Claire, I just love your story and I just love what you are doing out there. I think this is, just the beginning of these types of conversations, not just for individuals, but I think furthermore, even for the corporations that really need to hear the message. Last question for you, Claire. I'm going to throw this one at you is you have, stepped into this new version of you. You're healing your nervous system. You're beginning that self-discovery process. So, as compared to, 5 years ago, how do you define success and happiness today?
So how I define my success and happiness is the energy that I have to interact with other humans.
Mm,
For example, yesterday was Mother's Day, and 5 years ago, I probably would have dreaded going. I would have been annoyed. I don't want to get up. I don't want to get ready. I don't want to have to do the shopping, the gifts, the prep for the
yeah.
appetizer, all this stuff. Yesterday, I was like, it's Mother's Day. I got to get gifts. I got to do this. I walked into my family. Hey, how are you? I was on time. I was dressed. I had my gift, everything. Whereas opposed to, a year ago, I'd be like, hey, everybody, I'm here.
Yeah,
And then I would just sit
exactly.
and listen because I had no more to give
Yeah, no
because I gave it all
capacity.
already. And then now I can, I'm making plans with friends that I haven't seen in a long time. I'm ready to
Hmm.
get out and mingle with people, whereas opposed to a year ago, friends, who friends? I don't have time
Yeah,
for that. I'm too tired to hang out. You want me to go
exactly.
out? No way.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, where are we
I
going? Let's go. So I think that the community really is that level, to define what that success is, and
yeah.
meeting your neighbors and knowing them. And I recently went to a town hall meeting. I have never been to a town hall meeting my whole life
Uh-huh.
because it was at 7 o'clock at night. And I usually been forget that I'm not going to
Yeah.
that meeting. But now I went, and hopefully, my presence there made a change in the things that were being decided. And so it's that level of energy and
Yeah.
staying connected to people, connected to yourself, connected to your
Hmm.
family, connected to your friends, to your society. It's that connection that I am measuring success on.
Yes. We can only, I forget the quote is now, I'm going to totally butcher it. It's like, we can only be a resource to others when we fill our own source, right? And it's like, when
Right.
our source is empty, we can't give.
You've got to put your oxygen mask on before you help others.
Exactly. Oh, what a perfect, that's like a perfect way of ending things here. I love that. But before we do end things, Claire, tell everybody where they can find out a little bit more about what you're doing and your speaking engagements.
Yeah, thanks. So I am looking, going to be working with corporations and associations for speaking opportunities so that I can share this knowledge. My website is clarebenyo.com. There is no I in Claire, just like there is no I in team. And so check me out. It'll give, a little synopsis about what the presentation is about, what you can expect, and, how to get in touch with me. So Peter, thank you so much for this opportunity and for this time. It was really great to talk with you and not be on the, commenting on the lives that you're on. So this was really great. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, I so appreciate you being on, Claire. And yeah, I think that so many others are just going to resonate with your story as well. So excited to see what you do next in this journey because I think it's so, so needed. So thank you
Thanks.
again, Claire, for coming on. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in to another episode of the Millennial Reset. If you liked what you heard, be sure to share out far and wide with all of your millennial besties so that, again, we can begin to have the conversations out loud. It's not just you, it's not just me. It truly is a generational thing. We are all in this together, and we can begin to support each other to hit that reset. Be sure to visit www.themillennialreset.com so you can learn more and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Hey besties, if you're one of the millions of millennials feeling stuck in a constant state of stress and burnout, then number one, you're not alone. And number two, there is a way out. Be sure to check out www.themillennialreset.com for free online workshops, or you can become a member and join a community of support to learn a better way out of burnout.